Hi everybody, it's your girl Valerie Spencer, and as some of you may have known, I heard the verdict just like everybody else did, and I have been frankly so disgusted, and to coin a phrase that I heard a gentleman on the news media say, heartbroken that I have not been able to speak about it. In fact, I really haven't been able to speak, right? And for those of you who know me, hi, welcome to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, for those of you who do, hey. For those of you who know me, not speaking for me is something that, well, it's just not done. I always have something to say. But I've been so just awestruck by, I can't even say the names. I can say Trayvon Martin. But I've been so awestruck by the whole Zimmerman case, first of all, that there was a case. And the verdict has left me so, I can't do it. I can't. The reason for this video is to have a response that is hopefully different from the responses that I've been hearing. Here's the thing. For those of you who are, I've got the fan on, so hair is blowing in my face. For those of you who really don't know me, just kind of follow along and vibe with me. For those of you who do, then you're part of my whole internet, international, see you when I see you, but yet we're still really close family, right? Most of you that I know have made a choice to live a conscious life, to live a life that is driven by you being conscious, by you being present. You've made a conscious choice to live consciously, right? What does that mean? That means you're not driven by stimuli floating in the air. You're not driven by, motivated by, responding to things that happen in what we call race consciousness or human consciousness, human thought, fears, insecurities, passions, whatever. But you have made a choice to live a conscious life, meaning that you are driven by the knowledge that everything is a facet, is an expression, is a mirroring of pure spirit being itself as all life, right? And some of you express that by being Christians. Some of you express that by being just good people. Some of you express that even as being, to my atheist friends out there, even you too live consciously because you've chosen to be a good person. You're just an atheist, and that's okay. You know, you express that in your Buddhism, in your Santeria, in your Voodoo. You express that in a number of ways. Some of you don't express it at all. You just decide to be a good person and to check out the scenery and not be driven by that. So you've made a conscious choice to live a life that is based on an integrity rooted in love. Okay, rooted in love. I just want to bring it to your attention that living a conscious life is absolutely necessary for and most useful for seasons and episodes like this, right? That you are not driven by the things that are happening in the world, but you are driven by a sense of centeredness, right? Whether you meditate every day, whether you pray every day, whether you don't do any of those things, you just are rather rooted, right? Rather grounded. rather knowing. You have an inward knowing of what's what, right? And so you're not driven by all of this stuff. So be mindful that your consciousness, your conscious living, is for seasons and episodes just like this. Now, why is that so important for you to know right now? You will, because there's so much stuff floating in the air about this case, about the verdict, you will be invited to participate in thought processes, in dialogues, in states of being that are very counter to your decision to live consciously. Decline the invitation graciously, but decline. They will show up as racism, right? They will show up, white people don't do this, black people don't do that, Latino people do this, Asian people do that, white. It will show up as racism, the invitations. Some of the invitations will show up in us and them-ism, right? So there's us, and then there's them. And them is bad, them is wrong, how dare them and they. And then there's us. We're okay, we have our issues, but there's us. But that's also counter to who you really are and how you have consciously chose to be, to show up in the world. Because there is no us's and them's. There is only we. There is only I. Right? Granted, we make decisions, we make choices that we disagree with, strongly disagree with. But there's only the I, there's only the we, there's only the us, right? There's nothing wrong with protest. There's nothing wrong with civil disobedience. There's nothing wrong with protest. There's nothing wrong with social and political change. There's nothing wrong with passionate discourse. But be mindful who you are. Be mindful of the conscious choice that you have chosen to show up in and as in the world. You have chosen to live consciously. You understand the fuller context, not just the political context or the social context, but a deeper meaning. That there's all kinds of stuff happening in the world, and people make choices based on their humanness. And even in spite of that, there's still only us. A wonderful part of you living consciously. I have a leaky eye. I don't know what it is. I just have a leaky eye. A part of us living consciously is that you, especially me, I'll be personal for a minute. I'll talk about me. I've chosen to not live in a world that is racist. I know there is racism floating about. I'm not stupid, and I'm certainly not naive. But I choose not to have it in my world, right? I'm not going to not love my brothers and sisters, even those not love my white brothers and sisters, even those that I disagree with. I'm not going to not love my right-wing, conservative, Christian, Republican brothers and sisters. And God knows there are many of their beliefs that I firmly disagree with. But I don't want racism in my world. There's too much for me to think about in my own head about me, about life, about, I'm getting ready to go to school. There's too much to think about. Then to have to dissect, here someone comes and they're of a race. Right. I'm choosing to love, to embrace. Now, what shows up, I may have to make some decisions based on what shows up or what I'm approached with. But I don't want to live in a racist world. I don't want to live in a world that talks about those Latino people. I don't want to live there. And guess what? A part of your conscious living, your conscious choice to live consciously, is to not live in a world where there's racism. Now, for some of you, hopefully most of you, that means you'll have passionate discourse. You'll have protests. You'll make social and political change that sort of not eradicates. Is it eradicates? Gets rid of. Okay. That gets rid of, dismantles racism that is active in our culture. But you have chosen not to be racist. Not to see, not to interpret through a lens of racism, right? It exists. It shows up, and we know that in this particular episode, it was all about race. We feel it. We sense it. Those of us who've experienced it, we know it coming down the street. But we've also chosen to live consciously. We've chosen to be conscious people, right? So, as you navigate through this minefield of thought processes and mentalities and constructs and dialogues and discourses and water cooler stuff and stuff, right? Be mindful of who you are. And in some cases, completely disconnect yourself from the conversation, unless it's a conversation that leads to social change, right? And you have the intelligence enough to navigate that. But when you hear yourself going into a dialogue of, well, you know, those black people always, or those black people do, or white people do, be mindful that that's not who you are. You know, that's not who you are. That's not who you've chosen to be. When you discuss the jury and their decision and, oh, how I disagree with it. Okay, I disagree with it. But be mindful of the invitations that you very subtly get invited to participate in, and graciously and very patiently, graciously decline those invitations, right? In some cases, that means you're just going to have to plain old shut up. You're just going to have to plain old shut your mouth, have your feeling, and go to the polling place. Shut your mouth, have your feeling, and go to the protest. I don't know how you're going to navigate it, but I trust, I believe in you that you will, because you are people, wonderful people, who have made a conscious choice to live consciously. In this season, I pray for the family of Trayvon Martin. And I'm going to say Zimmerman, just because the name and the whole case is bitter on my lips. I'm going to pray for his family as well. I'm going to even pray for him, right? Because there's a certain amount of navigating and living that he has to do in spite of all of this. And I'm going to pray for him. I'm really going to pray for the parents. Right, for the parents, right, awful thing. And I don't want to make any social commentary because there's a lot going on, and frankly, I'm still too disgusted. My own anger and venom may come up. I'm still a human being, honey. Hey, remember who you are. You are conscious people who have made a conscious choice to live, to think, to see, to hear, to filter through a lens of consciousness. I love you all. Peace and be well. I gotta go to work. Bye-bye.